What's up, everybody? It's the Power Rankings Podcast, aka the Power Rankings Show. I'm your host, Elliot Harrison, and I'm joined, as always, by @Marcus_Mosher. That's an underscore. That's not the dash. That's the weird line that you have to hit the, Don't you have to do shift to do the underscore?
Yeah, it's not that much extra work. That was fine.
You know, I never wear black, and I was just noticing with your, by the way, I like your quarter zip Cowboys jacket. I can't do my Collinsworth mic slide that I like to do like this. You know how I really get a kick out of doing that, and every time I do it, you roll your eyes and you just say, let's move on. So I guess it's time to move on.
Yeah, let's move on. I'm ready to start the show.
Response. A lot of news today in the NFL. Obviously, this is always that time of year where there is, and a lot of it isn't good news. It's coaching, firings, and so on and so forth. We've got playoff scenarios to discuss. Obviously, want to get to some of the coaching news. We also have an incredible Sunday night game to talk about, and then we're going to rank the teams. So we've got all 32 teams that we're going to rank, and this is kind of an end of season ranking. So we'll be talking about really what we thought of the team season as opposed to just this last week's game, unless you happen to be a team that lost in Jacksonville this weekend. But other than that particular team, but I think really we should get to the most topical things first. Some coaching firings today. Matt Nagy released by the Bears, as was GM Ryan Pace. Looks like Joe Judge, as the time of this recording, is not going to be fired. Now, it might be weird to say that, Marcus, but I think that was one that everyone speculated on. Yep. We have Brian Flores. Vic Fangio was fired on Sunday. Am I missing anything?
No, I think that's it, right? We already had Urban Meyer fired, so that's
yes, that didn't count.
Yeah, that's all the jobs we have right now. And the Raiders won, but we might not be having a change in coaching with the Raiders. So, yeah,
and I think Rich Bisaccia definitely needs to be talked about. I was going to wait until we got to the Raiders ranking here on the list. They were moved up, which is no surprise. I want to just kind of dive into a couple of these things real quick. Vic Fangio kind of went with little fanfare because we had a full slate of Sunday games. So it's not something there was a lot of talking about. So I wanted to get to that one. Fangio is a great defensive coordinator. I don't see him having any problem getting a job if he wants one. I don't feel like this was really fair. Give a guy a quarterback and evaluate him. I know that you didn't think Fangio was a great head coach. Do you think it's a smart move to fire him?
I don't know if it's the smart move to fire him, not because, like you said, he didn't have a quarterback. But when you hire a defensive guy like this, you kind of know that's the deal, right? Like, if you're not going to have a quarterback, your team's going to be kind of middle of the pack all the time. So these guys typically don't boost up the play of the quarterback, and it ultimately was the downfall here for him.
But you also have to have a quarterback who is, in theory, boostable, right?
Sure.
And I don't know. I hate to say Teddy Bridgewater is what he is at this point of his career, but he probably is, which is a serviceable NFL quarterback. But if you're going to want to go better than, say, 9-8, I know Bridgewater did a good job with the Saints with Sean Payton, and maybe that's kind of what you're leaning here is that, with Sean Payton, Bridgewater could win more games.
Correct.
Here's what I would say to that. We have anywhere from 6 to 8 coaching moves. And when I say coaching moves, sometimes that's a guy we think is going to get fired and then they get retained or get a vote of confidence. Remember the dreaded vote of confidence, the late season? We don't hear a lot of those anymore.
No.
But if you have 6 to 8 kind of non-moves every year, how many actually work out? I would guess that if we did it as a percentage only, or as a just a straight number, only 2 out of the 8 ever actually work out.
And I would argue it might be even lower than that. I think a lot of times you only end up getting one coach hiring that was worked out, right?
Right. So if you're an analytics guy, because this is what I always find interesting, analytics people are usually ones that are calling for people's jobs based on them not doing what they think would be good coaching decisions. The analytics will tell you that most new coaching hires do not work out. So if you have a guy like Brian Flores, who had a winning record this year and last year, or even Vic Fangio, who was extremely competitive and had a top-ranked defense, are you actually making the smart analytics play to let those guys go?
It's a really good question. Can we just how many years do you think it takes to properly evaluate a coach, Elliot?
I think you need at least 3.
Okay,
at least 3. So Brian Flores has been there 3 years.
Let's just take a look at some recent years, and you tell me how many of these coaches worked out. Let's go to 2018. Okay. The Arizona Cardinals hired Steve Wilkes as their head coach.
That did not work out.
The Bears hired Matt Nagy.
I'm not as down on Matt Nagy as everybody else is, but yes, technically by Twitter standards, it didn't work out. They did go to the playoffs twice, I should add.
The Lions hired Matt Patricia to replace Jim Caldwell.
That definitely did not work out.
The Colts hired Frank Wright to replace Chuck Pagano.
That worked out.
We'll talk about that one later.
Out.
No, we're going to talk about that one later. Pat Shurmur, the Giants hired to replace Ben McAdoo.
That did not work out.
The Raiders hired John Gruden.
That didn't work out.
And then the Titans hired Mike Vrabel. So in that case, you had 2, 4, 6, 7. You had 8 coaching changes, and only 2 worked, as you mentioned. That seems like a pretty good year, right?
Well, I'm a smart guy, but I mean, thanks for the commentary. I'm just kidding, but I mean, it's a good point, isn't it? It's not a point I've heard anyone make, which is we make these talk about coaching changes, and a lot of what we talk about in terms of our criticism of coaches is their failure to embrace kind of the new game theory and to not change with the times. But yet you can apply analytics to this kind of revolving door and realize it doesn't pay to change more often than not. I'm not talking about paying to change when you have a coach that's done a terrible job. I'm talking about someone like Vic Fangio, who I think did a very serviceable job, and Brian Flores, who did a serviceable job.
I agree with Flores. There's really no reason to move on from him, especially with the way that team finished. You know, they won 8 of their last 9 games. He was dealt kind of an awful situation when he got there, right? Like that team was completely tanking, and he actually did a pretty good job of not allowing that to ruin the culture there. That one I don't get. Fangio at least had 3 seasons, and they never made the playoffs in any of those years. And it didn't appear they were getting better. So I understand that one more than Flores, who got only a couple of years.
Do you think really that the Dolphins are better than the Broncos this year by that much? I don't at all. I think the Dolphins won 7 in a row against very but the Broncos mediocre competition.
But the Broncos really started that way as well, right? All 3 of their wins were against some pretty awful teams to start the year, and then they basically treaded water. I don't know. I think the roster is better for the Broncos, and I think they were more disappointing.
Okay. So you have that firing. Matt Nagy had a couple playoff teams. They lost to the Saints. They lost to the Eagles on that ball that wasn't
the double doink.
Yeah, the double doink.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what year that was now. Was that all the way back in 18?
That was 2018. Yep.
Golly. Unbelievable how time flies. Joe Judge did not get fired. And I mentioned that at the top because that seems to be the biggest topic going on in kind of the social media sphere. A lot of comments and screenshots of the 3rd and 9 quarterback run. I didn't like seeing that either. And I kind of understand this one, why people are upset that he's still keeping the job. I think Giants fans are just upset with the organization as a whole. And yep. Joe Judge is kind of taking the brunt of that.
I think that's part of it, but also he's got a kind of a cocky nature about him that doesn't play very well when you're not scoring on offense at all. Right? Like just a couple of weeks ago, he said that players would love to come play for him, and that former players across the league say they would take less money. I mean, that's a time when it's just good to shut up and say we need to be better, right?
Yeah, and I've found that unless you're Kyle Shanahan, you can't really pull off the clip or 2 on the side with that baseball hat that looks fresh out of the box. Then you bent it to make it look curved.
Sure.
Hold down low.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Judge and Shanahan both do the same look, but I feel like Shanahan pulls it off a lot better. And Shanahan's sweaters and stuff are definitely, I think he gets them tailored. So whereas Joe Judge is straight like, hey, I'm the coach of this team. I get gear. Yeah, just give me the gear. Give me the gear. Give me the gear. He doesn't even look at what size it is. He puts it on and he pulls the hat down low and he makes cocky comments. I get it.
You think the Giants give out free gear? They only gave their season ticket holders a medium soda. So I kind of doubt that the coaches get free gear.
If the Giants had a sense of humor, wasn't it a medium Pepsi that they gave out?
Yeah.
If they had a sense of humor this week, it would have been a medium RC Cola. But they didn't do that. So whatever. Let's kind of get off coaches for a second. We're going to talk about the Giants in just a minute. We've got all the teams to rank. There's just so much going on today. But we cannot not talk about the game last night. I've been watching pro football since the 80s, and that's one of the best most exciting regular season games I've ever seen, ever. That's one of the wildest games I've ever seen. Am I overrating it? Because I don't think I'm one to get all excited like that. I don't know. I talk to you. Do you ever hear me overrate games like that? Or am I overrating this one?
No, I don't think you are, for a couple of reasons. The game itself, just by itself, was really entertaining. Like, this was a 15-point game with 4 minutes left, and the Chargers converted, I believe, 6 fourth downs from the 5-minute mark on, which is absolutely crazy. So that was good. And then when you add on the playoff implications, the loser goes home, but if they tie, both teams make it and the Steelers are out. I think that made it a lot of fun. But to me, Elliot, it still leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth.
Oh, here we go.
And you know why, though? Can I just do
this?
Listen. It's because you know how much I love Justin Herbert. That's really what it is. I thought he was outstanding yesterday. The throw that he made on 4th down, and I think it was 9 in overtime, where he's just threading the ball between like 3 defenders. It's just a bummer that he's not in the playoffs. That's all it is. Elliot's slowly sinking down in this chair.
Steelers talk in 3.
No, I'm good. I don't have to bring up the Steelers. I'm just
1.
The playoffs would have been so much fun with Justin Herbert in it, and I think he's a superstar. It bums me out that we don't get to see him until next year.
I understand that. There were so many things that were exciting about this football game to me. Obviously, you just mentioned some of them, but the juice that was on this game was phenomenal. It basically being a play-in game. Then you had everyone wondering what's going to happen from a coaching standpoint in a tie situation in overtime. So everyone was glued. It was amazing that everyone talked about this game potentially being a tie. Mm-hmm. And then when we actually found out, oh my gosh, it could be a tie, it was crazy. And NBC did a great job. They kept showing those 2 poor Steeler fans, looked like maybe like a dad and his son or something. Yeah. One had a Palomalu jersey on, and I can't remember the other guy, what jersey he had on, probably like Mark Malone or something. I couldn't tell. But there's some other things in that game. By the way, while you were tweeting out about Sean Hockley or Terrence Steele or whatever you normally tweet out about, I tweeted that why don't they just dispense with all the crud and just have every Charger drive start at 4th and 10? Because didn't it feel that way late in the game? It was a great uni matchup. It was a division matchup, the traditional division rivals. You had one quarterback who's super gritty. You had another quarterback who's an elite talent. You had Josh Jacobs playing his butt off, Austin Eckler playing his butt off. There were so many big plays, a former Charger and Casey Hayward making what looked like maybe the play of the game on that deep ball down the sideline. And then when you just factor everything else in, that we had waited for this the whole day because the Colts went and lost in Jacksonville. So it built that anticipation. People talk about Chiefs Rams from 2018. I'll take this over the Chiefs Rams game from 2018 any day of the week, because that Chiefs Rams game was like watching a college football game that's 55 to whatever. I thought this was more exciting.
Yeah, and you had Max Crosby just absolutely dominating on the right side. Yeah, and then Herbert still with receivers who are just completely gassed. I mean, they could not run at the end of the game, and he's finding ways to fit balls into really tight windows. It was a great game, and I think the intensity and the drama that we had in that game was kind of unlike anything I've seen in a long time.
That's the top 5 game I've ever seen by a pass rusher.
Yeah,
ever.
It was really
top 5. My number 1 is Lawrence Taylor versus the Saints with the dislocated shoulder on ESPN Sunday Night Football. But that was amazing.
Can I just tell you that game, you might remember these games, but that reminded me a lot of like an early John Elway performance from Herbert, where kind of in the first 3 quarters, it was not great, kind of inaccurate, but man, you get to the last couple of possessions and the last play, and he's just pulling plays out of his butt. I thought that was just such a good game by Herbert. It's just unfortunate that he's not going to be in the playoffs.
It was. And, Storm Norton, the Chargers right tackle, has been taking a lot of grief. I've seen his name a billion times. I'm going to give that guy a little credit. That guy kept getting beat, and they gave him no help.
Yep.
And Chris Collinsworth pointed out on the broadcast, they just didn't feel like they could afford to leave Jared Cook in. There's no adjustments there. They're not sliding to help him. But if you noticed in overtime and at the very end of the game, Crosby actually did not get home much.
I think he was gassed.
He was probably gassed from just rushing the quarterback. But, if you've ever been in an athletic situation in which you're not playing well or you're getting beat or you're just going up against, I don't care, play high school basketball and the other team's point guard is just quicker than you are, better ball skills. It's demoralizing. But if you can stick in there and give your quarterback enough time to make plays, Justin Herbert will make those plays. Either way, a phenomenal game. Best Week 18 game since Emmitt Smith's shoulder game.
Yes.
So, which if you go to Marcus's Twitter, he cut up a really cool highlight of that game from 1993.
Good luck finding it. Good luck finding it now after yesterday. All the tweets.
You just got to search Marcus Mosher, 1993, and
it'll pop up.
That's probably the only tweet you've ever sent. The Cowboys played the Giants in that game, 1993, and that's where we're going to start our power rankings for the first time. We have a new number 32 from the NFC. I think the entire year we might have had the Lions there briefly, but it's pretty much been the Jags and Texans.
Yep.
And then Lions there once early. Giants are a newbie to me, Marcus. The 3rd and 9 give up play is just part of what's been an entire culture of failure down the back stretch. If you look at the season holistically, standings wise, the Giants aren't the worst team in the league. They have the 5th and 7th pick, I think, in the draft coming up. Do you have any problem with me putting them 32 though? Here.
Absolutely not. They were an abomination the last 2 months of the season. Like they just couldn't throw the ball at all. Kenny Golladay, his effort really declined. It's not working out. Saquon Barkley doesn't look like the player that they drafted in the first round in 2018. No problems with this at all.
Okay. We already talked about Joe Judge. They've got decisions to make, obviously, with Daniel Jones, who didn't play, the last few games of the year. You just mentioned Saquon Barkley. I do think they still have some good players there, and I hope they can turn it around because this is a very proud franchise.
They've got the 3rd fewest cap space, cap dollars to spend this year. So it's rough.
Yeah, it's rough to be a Giants fan, but listen, you get that RC Cola and you're rolling. Maybe get some.
Only a medium though. Only a medium. Don't go splurge and get a large.
I'm kind of a cherry Coke guy when I get nachos.
Yeah,
but
me too.
But if you get a medium soda with those nachos, you're rolling. Just watch your Giants run the ball and right into the line. What was it? Was it a quarterback sneak? I forgot. Was it a kneel down or QB sneak?
It was a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9 from the 4-yard line.
You never know. He might have busted it open. Yeah. A guy actually ran for a 50-yard touchdown once on a quarterback sneak. His name is Greg Landry. He played for the Lions, and they ran a quarterback sneak, and he popped through, and then he just went the whole way. But he was a really good runner. All right, Jacksonville at 31. Trevor Lawrence, a good runner, but he actually did it throwing the ball yesterday. Got a good game from him finally. You and I talked about his struggles after he had a little bit of a run early in the year. He kind of turned his season around against Cincinnati in a loss. And then the back half of the season was very poor. What did you think of Jacksonville's effort? Did you think that was more offense, or did you think it was just all about their defense?
Both of those sides played really, really well. We're going to talk about the Colts here in a little bit. But there was a play in this game. Oh. Yes, we do. There was a play in this game where the snap was bad to Trevor Lawrence in the red zone, and it bounced on the ground, and he picked it up, and he rolled to his right and threw a dime to Marvin Jones.
That was the degree of difficulty on that play was 100 out of 100.
And when I watched that play, it's like, oh, that's what the Colts don't have. Right. And Jacksonville's bad now, but all they need is a couple more pieces, and that's going to flip pretty quickly.
Yeah. Definitely the stunner of the day, the biggest news of the day in terms of week 18.
Not unless you listen to this podcast. Let's just say that. Not unless you listen to this podcast. Because somebody who's on the screen right now predicted that the Colts would lose. But go ahead.
And I would agree. And that same person deserves a lot of kudos, but I don't think he really needs to get it from me, because anytime he does get something right, he's so eager to share with the world that he got it right. Whereas the other guy has been right most of the year and is much more humble about it.
Sure.
Speaking of humility, I got my first speaking of it. I'm going to try to get 5 more. Carolina, they humbled again this week. Matt Rule. I'm going to give you the Matt Rule discussion here, because this one is a real tough one for me.
They're 2 years in, and they are further away from competing for the playoffs than they were when they hired him. They haven't developed a quarterback. They've spent more money on quarterbacks than any other team in the NFL. And their defense is awful, which is kind of his calling card. So what in the world are we doing, Carolina? Now there's reports that, hey, we're going to go after Deshaun Watson in the offseason, give up a bunch of picks. And I don't – listen, if there's we don't root for guys to be fired, but I could totally understand why Matt Rule, if the Panthers wanted to move on, why it would make sense.
Yeah, it's I agree with your assessment. I told you I think guys need 3 years at least, but that's not the NFL these days. 3 years is considered a luxury. They thought they were doing the job with Sam Darnold. I think the front office deserves a little bit of this, Marcus. I don't think we could put that all on the head coach. They haven't had the personnel. They did pick up Gilmore in the secondary during the season, but losing McCaffrey was a big deal for them. Either way, I think 30th is the right spot for this team. I've got the Jets at 29. Ironically or coincidentally, these two teams opened the season against one another, which feels like forever ago. The Jets hardly had anybody to play against Buffalo. To be honest, I wasn't really sure how far I should move this team down. I just saw more from the Jets over the back half of the schedule than I did Carolina.
Yeah, I don't know. This Jets team is so up and down. The defense played well yesterday. I think they did a pretty good job against Josh Allen, but Zach Wilson got sacked more than he had completions yesterday. 7 completions, 8 sacks. He took an awful sack, like a 30-yard sack running out of bounds. This team is still a long ways away.
He just looks like every time I see him, he looks like a 22-year-old guy that's embarked on a job as a tennis pro, like at the club that kind of helps, people that don't work during the day, get their serve down. That's what he looks like to me. It's crazy. Houston Texans at 28. Some speculation on David Culley. I hope that the Texans do the smart thing here. They already kind of did do the smart thing by playing Davis Mills. The ROI on that, for all of you non-business majors, that's return on investment. I'm sure you knew that, but came through yesterday. He played great. I told you on the phone, man, he gave Tennessee. I watched that game. He gave Tennessee all they could handle. What do you think the organization should do with Culley? And would you be confident that Davis Mills deserves the opportunity here and you don't draft a quarterback?
I'm not opposed to the Texans moving on from Culley if there's somebody who is significantly better available. I mentioned to you today, actually, I think if Brian Flores, who was fired today, I think that would be an upgrade. If they got somebody like Kellen Moore, who could help make the offense of Davis Mills better, I would agree with that. But just firing him for the sake of firing him doesn't make a lot of sense. Davis Mills was impressive in this game, like really, really good. Averaged over 9 yards an attempt, 300 yards passing. I think the Texans are in a very similar situation to like what the Eagles were last year with Jalen Hurts. And in fact, I think Mills has actually shown more than what Davis Mills or than what Jalen Hurts did.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think, maybe you ride it out and you draft an offensive lineman or two and improve the trenches. And let's see, because I think what we've seen from him as a rookie, he's good enough to at least earn another year of evaluation.
Well, I'll just put it this way. If the Texans let go of Culley, there's going to be a lot of talking about that move for reasons off the field.
Yeah.
And I think the guy has earned the right. There's no question they played hard for him, Marcus. There's no question. So we'll see what happens there. A team that played really hard for its head coach, Detroit Lions. There's no getting around that. I don't know how much of that game you were able to watch, but it was fun. It was just fun. Between the Lions wearing their throwback to the touchdown pass to Khalif Raymond on basically the double option wide receiver pass, looked so good. Love seeing that kind of stuff. And I realized Green Bay wasn't playing all its starters, but I still think that was a quality win for the Lions.
Yeah, I agree. They played in 12 games this year that were decided by one score. So this team is competitive, despite you look at that roster. It's not very good. And then you consider all the injuries they had with Goff and Swift and all the receivers being banged up. Yeah, I think the Lions are headed in the right direction. They're going to have to figure out the quarterback situation. But I actually think Goff showed well enough this year. Like if they want to trade him, they could probably get something decent from him. So I think all in all, a pretty successful – a rebuild's probably the right word, but like a down year for Detroit. I think this went about as well as it could.
I'm so glad that you said that because early in the year, there was so much Twitter hate for Jared Goff, especially when Matt Stafford was playing great. And I think he acquitted himself well. They really missed him late in the year, especially that loss to Atlanta that came down to a red zone interception. It was, what was that, Tim Boyle that threw that ball?
Yep.
They really could have won that game in Pittsburgh as well. I know you weren't upset about that one at all. But Dan Campbell, I think, earned a lot of respect around the league. People are rooting for him. Speaking of the Falcons, I got my second speaking of, and they were not good this year, obviously, but they did have moments where they were a tough out. I think they had a hard time against the Saints on Sunday. Yep. They're not a good team, but I would definitely put the Falcons above these teams that we have below them. Now the question is, what do you do going forward in terms of your quarterback?
Yeah, we knew it was going to be a tough year for the Falcons, but it was even harder when Calvin Ridley stepped away after only a couple games, right? Just that put even more pressure on Kyle Pitts to be the de facto number one receiver. Yeah, it was tough, and they hung around in some games they probably shouldn't have hung around in. And I think Arthur Smith is still a pretty good head coach. He was hired last year. I'm not totally down on this team. I think with the right couple moves this offseason, getting Calvin Ridley back, they could be a 9-win team next year.
Yeah, and you and their defensive coordinator share a lot of the same philosophies, I find, on football.
No, but we do agree that you should mow your yard. Go ahead.
I do think, by the way, yard work, Harrison Heltack, yard work clears your mind like nothing.
It does.
So if you haven't gone out and mowed the lawn for a while, or the kid that mows your lawn down the street can't do it this week because he's got a keg party to go to, just get out there, throw your tube socks on. Nobody cares.
It's really good. It's really good advice to people who live in my area that have just got 18 inches of snow. But yes, go ahead.
Look, Marcus, I can't cover every single little spot. Okay, but I'm with you on the Falcons. I don't think they're going to trade Matt Ryan, but man, if they were to trade Matt Ryan, I would so hope they would trade him to the Saints in their division with Jameis Winston being a free agent. That would be an incredible marriage in my mind. It's probably not going to happen. Seattle Seahawks at 25. They got a big win yesterday. They played better down the stretch. Marcus, it wasn't just an illusion, the big blowout win against the Lions. Russell Wilson even sent out a 3-word tweet. It wasn't just, patience.
Resilience.
Yes. So Seattle.
I don't know what to think about
next.
I don't know. I really don't know. This has been a marriage that's been in the works since 2012 between Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson.
Yep.
This is one team I'm fascinated to see what they do because I don't think they move on from Pete Carroll. I kind of don't think they move on from Russell Wilson either. But I don't know.
It's not easily solvable, but I also wonder how much needs to be solved. Because once you start getting social media speculation about a coach player rift or whatever, it can end up being a lot larger than that actual rift is.
Yep.
Maybe there is a big rift, but if these guys come back and they play the way they did at the end of the season, they still have some really good football players on that team. And the draft is just a few months away. Seattle could be right back in the mix. The only thing here is what a quality division they're in. That's the tough part.
Yep.
There's not a better division. All right, let's go to number 24. Kind of slowly getting out of the bad teams, but not quite. Washington football team got a win yesterday. No one's really talking about Washington anymore, which is interesting given
it's great for them, right?
Yeah, which I don't know that I like. I think there's some stories we should keep alive, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But Washington got the big win. Do you give Taylor Heineke a chance if you are GM head coach tandem next year? I assume Ron Rivera is completely safe. What do you do with Taylor Heineke? Because I think that he's earned the opportunity. I don't mind them drafting a QB, but I'd like to give Taylor Heineke every opportunity to build on what he's done so far.
I disagree. I would be looking for an upgrade. He had a QBR of 5 yesterday, Elliott, which is, I don't know if you knew, but that's pretty bad.
I know that's bad.
I would move on. I think Heineke is almost an overqualified backup, but he's not the guy. Like, if you're Washington, you need to find the guy that can go toe-to-toe with Dak Prescott. They can go toe-to-toe with all the other quarterbacks in the NFC West. And we love Heineke, but he's not it. So you need to be in the market for a quarterback, whether that's via trade, whether it's in the draft. I think you've got to find somebody else.
Just a couple things here, okay, on Heineke. I said I'm fine with them drafting a quarterback, but I don't think this needs to be a deal where they draft a quarterback and they sit Heineke down and they just go with that guy and let him develop. I think you give Heineke a chance as well. Make guys compete. Don't hand draft picks jobs. A couple things on Heineke, though, here, man. 65% completion rate, not bad at all. 20 to 15 TD to INT ratio. That may not sound great, but given that there's no Curtis Samuel there all year, tight end, they were almost without their tight end as well. Really, the only guy they had was McLaurin. And so I know you may not be a big Heineke guy, but what was he playing with out there? His yards per attempt weren't great, granted 6.9, but he's extremely mobile. He's a gamer. He's very tough. I think he's more than just an overqualified backup quarterback. I think if given the opportunity, he could be a decent, viable starter. Decent.
First meeting against Dallas, 11 completions. Second meeting against Dallas, 7 completions. This game against the Giants, 9 completions.
Okay, well, if you cherry pick,
I'm just saying.
I gave his overall numbers. You're cherry picking games. That's all right. We can disagree.
He's a 29-year-old quarterback who we kind of know what he is. I think he's just not it, right? And unless you find that guy, it doesn't really matter. I think Washington needs to swing for the fences this offseason.
Okay, but if you just hand a draft pick a job, well, Washington has such a great track record. Okay, let's go to the Broncos at 23. We talked about them losing their head coach. This is a team that has some talent on the defensive side of the ball. Where do you go if you're the Broncos? What are you looking for in the draft here?
I mean, I think you got to find a veteran quarterback before you even get to the draft. I'm not waiting and hoping that one of these guys falls to you in the middle part of the first round. I think you need to be proactive. Go out and see what the market is like for Kirk Cousins. See what it's like for Russell Wilson, because I think the rest of this team is ready to go. And I don't want to wait around for a quarterback who may or may not be it. Denver can compete now, but they've got to find their guy.
Matt Ryan. With that defense, if though, I think one of the big disappointing things for the Broncos season was Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. If they could get more consistent play outside and keep their guys healthy outside, I think this could have been a better football team. Jeudy and Sutton's seasons were different. I'm just saying they didn't get nearly what they were expecting to get from those guys. Chicago Bears at 22. Matt Nagy is gone. This is a team that lost its best player to injury, Khalil Mack. Only thing I want to say about this team is what I told you on the phone earlier was that I think Robert Quinn deserves some Defensive Player of the Year consideration. Literally nobody is talking about Robert Quinn at all.
I agree. I'm looking forward to see who they hire as their head coach, because I do think they've got some pieces on offense I really like. Darnell Mooney had a great end of the season. Allen Robinson's probably going to be gone, so they need to find a head coach that can maximize Mooney down the field. They can get Justin Fields progressing as a quarterback, because I do think they're not that far away with that defense from being a contender in the NFC.
Robert Quinn, 18 and a half sacks, 49 tackles, 4 forced fumbles this year. Those are incredible numbers that just about any team would take, and he deserves all-pro consideration as well. Minnesota Vikings at 21. They got a win, of course, when it didn't matter. I look at the Vikings as still a very talented team, but this is a team that's got to make decisions at head coach and quarterback.
Yeah, they fired their general manager. They fired their head coach. I saw Justin Jefferson's comments today that he basically said him and Kirk Cousins don't really get along and don't see eye to eye on a lot, which that should suggest that there's a lot going on there. Seems like a big rebuild is going to be happening for Minnesota this offseason.
Yeah, I'm sure Justin Jefferson's really easy to work with when they ask him, what have you learned, in 2 years in the NFL, that I'm really good at football. Yeah, there's no ego there at all. None. Great player. Great. By the way, we forgot to mention Mike Zimmer at the top of the show. We were so busy talking about the other coaches, and we totally just spaced on Mike Zimmer.
I won't be surprised if he gets hired as a head coach somewhere else.
So kind of interesting here. So with Broncos 23, we got Vic Fangio leaving, Bears at 22, Nagy's leaving, Vikings at 21, Mike Zimmer's leaving, 20, Dolphins, Brian Flores, he's leaving. I know you don't like that move.
Nope.
Looking at the rest of the team, they didn't get very much out of Myles Gaskin this year. I know that's a guy that they were going to lean on. There were other issues with this team, I think, that contributed other than coaching, other than Tua being inconsistent.
Yeah, and they also kind of whiffed in free agency. They spent $10 million on Will Fuller, who played one game for them. Devontae Parker didn't have a good season. They basically, their offense was, let's throw the ball to Jalen Waddle, and if that doesn't work, we have no other plan. I think this team should have kept Brian Flores because I think he is the right kind of culture guy to have there. But I can see it if they bring in somebody to help work with Tua, because much like all these other teams, unless you figure out if Tua is the answer or not, you're going to be kind of stuck in the middle.
Myles Gaskin, 612 yards rushing at 3.5 yards per carry.
Yikes. I think that says more about the offensive line, though.
Yeah, but I have never seen this receiving. Myles Gaskin caught 49 balls, okay, for 234 yards. That's under 5 yards a catch. That's ridiculously hard to pull off with that many catches. Cleveland Browns at 19. Doesn't look like Kevin Stefanski's going anywhere, which I think is the right move. Baker Mayfield is another situation altogether. We've talked about Baker on this podcast aplenty. Looking at the rest of the team, I think they need help wide receiver. Marcus, for sure. They've been able to get the running game going when they've been able to keep their guys healthy. I'd like to see the Browns get some secondary help, but more importantly, wide receiver help.
Yeah, and I think if they get the right guy in free agency and Baker's healthy, I think this can be a 9 to 10 win team. It's just, is that going to be good enough to beat Kansas City long term, or whoever in the AFC? I'm not sure.
Maybe even more important than secondary help was just get interior presence or more on the front line to help out Myles Garrett. I realize he's a great player, but if you can get someone to balance him that's really impactful, and they have some decent players up front, but you can never be too overstocked in the front seven, especially when you have an elite guy like that. That's what I wanted to see with Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack this year, and it didn't work out, unfortunately, because Mack got hurt. Okay, Baltimore Ravens at 18. This is a team that's used to being in the postseason. John Harbaugh has been extremely successful. They lost so many close games this year, including on Sunday. I know this game had to just frustrate you to all heck.
It did. I mean, if Tyler Huntley was even a little bit competent in the red zone, they win that game. They had a chance to go up by 7 in the second half, and he throws an interception.
Yeah,
Hollywood
Bad
Brown
ball.
Yeah, and then Hollywood Brown drops a touchdown pass. It hits him in both hands and drops it, and then he drops another one late in the game. I still like the prospects of this Ravens team long term, because they've got one of the things that's going to help from this season is they ended up developing a lot of depth. Like they played so many guys this year, and then on top of that, now they've got a top 15 pick, but they also have 9 picks in the first 4 rounds of this year's draft. So I think this team is going to be really good next year. It was just it was a year from hell for the Ravens. I think they're fine. I think they're going to be okay.
I tell you what, if you watching that game, Latavius Murray just ran right through them over and over and over again. And when I say them, I'm referring to the 17th ranked Pittsburgh Steelers. These aren't power standings, they're power rankings. I've got the Steelers at 17 because I think they're the 17th best team in pro football. They still don't get the ball down the field enough, although I was encouraged. Ben Roethlisberger did throw some vertical plays, intermediate passes on Sunday, but I have no confidence in the Steelers in playoffs. I know you do. I do not.
Roethlisberger has not completed a pass over 20 yards in the air in the last 4 games. So he's really struggling to throw the ball down the field, but they continue
He
to
had
find
some drops though, man. Be fair. He had, there were a couple plays in that game, but they didn't help him out.
Johnson dropped one across the middle. I think Ray McLeod one, but neither of those were down the field throws, right? But listen, Pittsburgh's finding strange and weird ways to win games. Can they go to Kansas City and play a close game in the fourth quarter? We'll see. I think so.
I got to tell you, if they would have lost that game, Freiermuth's had a nice season for them at tight end, but there was a fumble against the Lions in that tie.
Yep.
The drop against Minnesota with the end of this game, the first down marker's right there. And he just kind of runs out of bounds. And I'm thinking, dude, put your head down and drive for that thing. He forced Pittsburgh to punt. They escaped with a win is the best way, I think, to put it. He's had a nice year. Don't get me wrong. I know the fans love him a lot, but if you saw that play, that was not good. Let's move on from Pittsburgh. I don't like talking Pittsburgh football with you. Let's go to number 16. And getting
thanks.
Oddly enough, we've got a team that's not in the postseason ahead of Pittsburgh, but I think the Saints are a better football team. Marcus, we've talked about their defense a ton. I don't want to tell you who came into the game and threw some clutch passes. I'll let you say it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Saints are a better version of the Steelers. Their defense is really good. They've been just hammered by injuries all season long, and Trevor Siemian did what a good backup does. He comes in and makes enough plays to win that game. I was really hoping the Saints would make the playoffs because they're a lot of fun to watch, but it's a tough year for them, and I think they'll be back right into the divisional hunt next year. I'm not worried about the Saints long-term at all.
What did you think about my idea of Matt Ryan to the Saints?
I don't know if it works because of the cap situation and because of it being division rivals, but like Jared Goff, I think could be pretty decent there if they want to do something like that.
How much would the Saints have to offer the Falcons to get the Falcons to trade Matt Ryan within the division? It's
probably quite a bit. But listen, if Jared Goff went to New Orleans, I could see that working. I think that would be maybe a good spot for him as well.
I'm not as excited about your Jared Goff idea as my Matt Ryan. Can you tell?
I can tell, but the Goff one is far more realistic, and we both know that.
I know, but it is crazy to think that Donovan McNabb was traded in the division to Washington coming off of multiple playoff years.
Hey, I got a better idea.
Okay.
What about Carson Wentz? Because there's no way the Colts can bring him back, right?
No. I think Matt Ryan would have made a big difference for the Broncos, though.
That was my transition to 15 here. Talking about
I know it was, and I just wasn't letting you have it, So there you go. The Colts at 15, awful performance, definitely the worst performance of Sunday, given everything that was on the line. They had full availability. They had their guys. They just went down there and laid an absolute egg. They got stuffed on fourth down multiple times in this game. And the goal to go was a huge play on Jonathan Taylor. Carson Wentz was not effective. What am I missing?
I do think that teams tend to take on the attitude of your head coach and your quarterback. And it felt like early in this game after Carson Wentz, turned the ball over a couple of times and they had some 3 and outs. He kind of started to hang his head a little bit. And I felt like the Colts were saying, you know what, it's just not our year. And that's not the attitude you should have at all. But all you have to do is win a game on the road against Jacksonville to make the playoffs. I think that the Colts have to do some serious consideration, considering this offseason about what do we do? Because we can't keep going 9-8 every year or being knocked out of the playoffs in the first round. We got to figure out something because this team is too good to do that every single year.
Well, whose idea was it to get Carson Wentz? Was it GM Chris Ballard's idea? Was it Frank Reich's idea? Who pounded the table for him?
That's an important question, right? Because why did you need to do that?
Well, the only reason I ask it is because obviously Frank Reich worked on that Eagles team that won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles when a lot of people thought Carson Wentz should have won the MVP. You didn't express very much confidence in Frank Reich at the top of this podcast. This is a team that went 11-5 with Phillip Rivers last year. They went 7-9 with Jacoby Brissett the year before that. They went 10-6 with Andrew Luck coming off of not playing at all and not even picking up a football. And, they were pretty good in the playoffs, so they ended up getting beat by the Chiefs. But I think he's done a pretty decent job.
Do they make the playoffs this year if Phillip Rivers is their quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
On to 14. We're on to Cincinnati. Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts. Everybody's made that on to Cincinnati joke that now I just feel like I have to do it because it's so annoying. Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts. We talked about him. They sat him against the Cowboys. You can't really learn anything from that game on Saturday. What I would say is when this team's defensive line and offensive line plays well, they can beat just about anybody, but they have to limit Hurts' attempts and run the football. And that's what I think they're going to do in the postseason.
It's a really interesting matchup against Tampa Bay that I'm excited to talk about here on Thursday.
Is that all you have?
That's all I have. What are we going to take away?
I guess on to the Chargers.
What are we going to talk about from that game? It was basically a preseason game. We have nothing to add.
That I love Gardner Minshew still.
It's because you guys have the same hair, so I get it.
That hurts. I think I have more like Justin Herbert hair, if not his arm. Justin Herbert, Chargers have a lot to look forward to. They're at 13 going forward. Brandon Staley, who a lot of people gave credit early in the year, including myself, is not getting that same credit now. Do you feel like the criticism of him is warranted?
Yes. Yeah. He's a defensive guy and his defense let him down. The Raiders, we can get into whether this timeout mattered or not, but the big thing is they got so many yards on third down on a run that it set them up to kick a field goal. His defense just got shredded. And really the story of the game to me is it was a third and was it 24? And they let Jalen Richard run for 25 yards. It's pretty embarrassing, Elliot.
Am I allowed to hammer you since you've given yourself so much credit on this podcast already?
Sure. I picked the Chargers to win. Yeah.
No, not that. Not that. So did I. I picked the Chargers to win too. I asked you early in the year, Austin Eckler or Ezekiel Elliott, and you took Ezekiel Elliott.
No, hold on. That's not true. Do you remember what
I'm pretty sure.
No. Do you remember my argument is? It depends on the quarterback, right? If I have a young quarterback that I need more help, protecting and a guy that can pass block, I get it. Now I was still wrong. Eckler's the right choice, but I can see it in certain situations where Zeke's pass blocking would make up some of the difference.
Courtney, you know how Marcus is an analytics guy. I'm going to give you some analytics on this podcast. There's an 86.2 win probability for Marcus to win an argument when he's able to rearrange facts, alternative facts, which Marcus is a big fan of alternative facts, let me tell you, and rearrange discussions to make it seem like that he was right. Just take the L. Just take the L.
It's fine. I don't care. I like Austin Eckler.
I know you do. Josh Jacobs ran hard. Some nice plays from him. Raiders at number 12. We talked about that game already. I just want to give Jacobs a little bit of credit. There were several key plays where it looked like he kind of squirted out of there, and he looks a lot healthier than he did a month ago to me, Marcus. More explosive.
Yeah,
way more explosive.
Yeah, he is. He's got 348 yards over the last 3 games. He forced 11 missed tackles in this one. Like, this is what we saw early on in his rookie season. And then Zay Jones, listen, Zay Jones has perfected how to flop for a receiver and get the call. Kudos to him.
Moreau made big play for them. It's great to see Waller back out there running around.
Can we say
the defense
though,
has to pay attention to him.
Can we say though how lucky Foster Moreau is that ball bounced out at the 1 yard line on the first drive of the game?
Yes.
Imagine how different this game is if that ball goes into the back of the end zone.
Oh, there's a lot of things that happened in that game, but sure, that's certainly one of them. Waller, just the defense has to pay attention to him, whether he has a big game or not. And I was glad Chris Collinsworth kept pointing that out. I don't think they're going to beat the Bengals. We'll talk about it more on Thursday, but I'm glad that he's going to be there for that game. Arizona Cardinals, how far they have dropped. Marcus, originally we were debating that, was this the best team in football? I told you I didn't think it was. And I know you're out on Ravens culture. You're out on Brandon Staley. Are you now out on the Cardinals?
No, because I think they might win this week against the Rams.
Okay.
So no, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not out, but that was a tough loss. I don't understand why this team is so awful at home, but they are. They're terrible playing home games. Doesn't make much sense.
Terrible. I will be honest with you. Even though I argued vehemently with you that they're not as good as you thought they were, I didn't think they were this bad. If you had asked me, where do you think the Cardinals are going to end up at the end of the year? Like in my rankings, I would have been in the 6 to 8 range, not 11, not 11. And honestly, right now, if they played the Raiders, I don't think they'd beat the Raiders, who I've got at 12. I'm doing some of this on confidence with who they have. I don't think the Cardinals would beat the Chargers right now, but they're in the playoffs and they were so good earlier in the year. That's the only reason I have them at 11 right now. I see you cringing back there. Do you think the Cardinals would just steamroll the Raiders, Chargers, or Eagles? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I think they would.
Well, I got the Colts at 15. The Colts just beat them a couple of weeks ago. So way for me to argue with my own rankings. So
there you go.
That's not smart. Let's go Buffalo at 10. This is a team that you and I have talked about a lot. You call them frauds. I've just said it's been so hard to know how good they are. This feels like the right spot to me because I think Cincinnati is better than they are, but I think Buffalo is better than Arizona. They beat up on a very depleted football team this Sunday. Another game, I don't think we can really take anything away from it, kind of like the Cowboys win at Philadelphia. Do you see it differently?
No, I don't think we should take too much away from this one, except for Josh Allen just is terrifying in good and bad ways. Like when he's scrambling outside of the pocket, like it's one of the most exciting things in football right now, but I don't trust him at all. And if you're a Bills fan and you see that you're matched up against New England in round one of the playoffs, that's got to be terrifying, right? Like that's got to be like the worst possible matchup in the world for you, right?
I'd like to see kind of like what Carolina did late in the 2015 season, design QB draws and those kinds of things, like where you're literally just taking one step back and then going right up the middle with it, like quarterback power, essentially.
Yeah.
Because what do you have to lose? Like you're trying to win right now, and any AFC team is vulnerable. Even Kansas City. Play to Josh Allen's strengths. Why not? I know you're worried about hurting him, but now it's the postseason. So there you go. You've been worried about Joe Burrow being hurt a lot this year because of how many hits he's taken, especially early in the year. Remember the first 2 games of the year, he took 10 sacks. But the Bengals have thrived. I know they lost on Sunday, but this isn't about losing to Cleveland with a lot of your guys out. Bengals at 9. Are they in the right spot? Would you actually have them a little higher?
I think I might have them a little bit higher. There's something I really like about this Bengals team, and I know that they can be a little inconsistent, but Burrow's confidence, Chase playing so well. I think the defense is really underrated. I like this Bengals team, and I actually really like the way the playoffs might line up for them. If they beat the Raiders here in week one or in round one, I think they could go on a little bit of a roll. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they represent the AFC this year.
Given that the Raiders lost Phylon Sunday night and last night, and the way their pass rush was just tearing after Justin Herbert, doesn't it make sense to run the ball 30 times right at the Raiders? You have the personnel.
And it's what they did in their earlier matchup just like 2 months ago. Joe Mixon had a monster game against the Raiders.
Didn't he have like 150 yards, something like that?
Wouldn't be surprised if it's a very similar formula in the first round.
Well, now I want to look up that game. Any other thing that we're missing here from this matchup with Bengals Raiders?
Burrow only had like 148 passing yards. Like he didn't have to do much in that game. But that's okay. They basically played a ball control style of offense. I think the Bengals defensive line is going to have a big day against the Raiders like they did in the last one. It's just not a good matchup for the Raiders. But we've been saying that for the last month, and they continue to surprise us.
Do you know what's not a good matchup for the Bengals? Their tackles versus the Raiders pass rushers. If it comes down to that matchup, Raiders win.
Yeah. That's why this game has to be one where they stay out of long third downs, right? They can't get it in the 3rd and 9 or they're going to lose, right?
Yeah, so good memory here for you. Joe Mixon, 30 carries, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game. You don't see running backs get 30 carries in the NFL very much.
And he was hurting in that game too. He had a bad ankle, gutted through it.
Hey, play Pirine if you got to. He plays hard. He runs hard. Why not? But that's the way you got to do it. You can't have Max Crosby just thinking, oh, boy, I get to rush the passer every play. You're going to get beat. Number 8. So we're getting into our kind of elite teams here, although Cincinnati, San Francisco, to me, if you want to swap them, that's fine. These teams are very close. I gave the 49ers a nod here because they won, what was that, early December, a game in Cincinnati. The 49ers are a scary team. We're going to talk about the Cowboys matchup at length on Thursday for sure. season as a whole, Marcus, here's kind of my takeaways. Good coaching job. First of all, on Sunday against the Rams, Kyle Shanahan punted the ball away when a lot of coaches wouldn't have done it when it was 3rd and 20. His defense got the stop. He got the ball back and won. I thought that was a conservative, gutsy move to punt. Now, granted, like I said, he had the timeouts, but it doesn't matter who's back there at running back. They run the ball. It's part of their MO. And the other thing is he's not going to win any awards, but Deebo Samuel has been as good as offensive player as anybody in the NFL this year.
I agree. They're going to be a really tough out for the Cowboys in round one. It's a really, really tough team to play. They play a unique style of football that I know you love. It's a good team.
I do. And there's another team that plays that style of football that we're going to get to that would be just a wonderful matchup. Okay, number 7, New England Patriots. I still like this team a lot. I know they lost. I like their defense. You know, Mac Jones is really the key. If they can get a B-plus game from Mac Jones, they can beat anybody. If Mac Jones is a little off or he turns the ball over, they are not built to come from behind. They can't afford a Mac Jones pick 6. Where do you see the Patriots right now? Do I have them? Would you like to see the Bengals over the Patriots, or do you think it's the right spot?
Yeah, I think I probably would put the Bengals over the Patriots, but I'm fine with it. I feel like these guys are in the same tier. I still worry about Mac Jones in a big playoff game. Can he make enough big throws at this stage of his career? I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to this game against Buffalo.
I want to tell you why I have the Patriots where I do. Right now, you need a kind of football that'll travel, and you need great coaching. And I realize Zach Taylor's done a nice job. I'm taking Bill Belichick. Sure. If weather conditions are terrible, I'll take the Patriots style of play over the Bengals style of play. That's why I have them. And ditto the 49ers. That's why they're 7, 8, 9 the way they are. I think Cowboys at 6 is a controversial choice. I had them at 9. I moved them up 3 spots. They really didn't do anything to earn moving up. They blew out a team that wasn't playing anybody. And you could make the argument that you could have afforded to rest some of those guys that the Cowboys played. However, given the way the Patriots played this weekend, the 49ers having to make a hurried comeback, so on and so forth. The Bengals didn't play anybody. That's why the Cowboys are at 6. Did it bother you on any level? I know you loved the win, but did it bother you on any level that some of these guys weren't getting an extra week of rest?
No, I don't think so, because I think after the way they played against the Cardinals last week, I think they wanted to build some positive momentum. And we saw, Elliot, how things played out. Like, it's a good thing that the Cowboys didn't just rest everybody and lose this game, because now they moved up to the 3rd seed. And while that might not seem like a huge difference going from 4 to 3, if you do beat the 49ers here in round 1, now you avoid going to play Lambeau in round 2, or go play Green Bay in Lambeau. So, yeah, I had no problem with it at all.
So here's I guess a Harrison business hack, but they're all under health hack. If you're in a Zoom meeting with a colleague or like at work and you really aren't paying attention, just throw out a topic that you don't really believe in so other people will talk about it, but so that your boss thinks that you're engaged. Right?
There you
go.
So
I threw out this topic to Marcus just now about should they rest it? Honestly, I don't think they should have rested their guys. How can you rest your guys when you've been playing the way you've been playing? You need the reps. You need to play. I think it was Ezekiel Elliott that said we need to play well as a team today. Yeah. That's more important, and it's worth risking an ankle tweak or whatever. But boy, tough matchup. All these teams we're going to talk about Thursday at length. Let's get to the Rams. They're at 5. Middle of the overtime period, they found out that the Cardinals lost. They didn't need that game. I can't remember who pointed it out, but I thought it was a smart comment that they liked the play call of throwing it deep to Odell Beckham, even though it got picked, because let's just either win this thing or lose this thing right now and not risk getting any more of our players. Sure. If Stafford throws a good ball, Odell Beckham had a step. Stafford throws a good ball there, touchdown, they win. Great. Intercepted, fine. Let's get off the field and go to the playoffs.
I don't hate the strategy, but there's still something off about this Rams team. Like, they've got all these stars, and whatever reason, when they need big plays, they just typically don't make them, right? Like, Jalen Ramsey had a coverage bust that led to the game-tying touchdown, and Matt Stafford is getting hit in the backfield on key 3rd downs. This team is so talented, but there's just something missing from them.
So let me see here. In what way could we get a Rams 49ers playoff game? Because I think that would be an epic playoff game.
So the Rams are the 4 seed, correct? And
Yeah,
the
Niners are 6.
it's probably pretty unlikely that we'd get it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll figure that out for Thursday. My brain hurts. I can't, we're an hour in. I can't be doing, I need my TI 81. What calculator did you say you had in school? Was it an 80?
83.
You had the 83. Okay.
Yeah.
You're one of the cool kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Tennessee at 4. So we talked about San Francisco. Marcus mentioned I love their style of play. Tennessee, very similar. This would be an epic postseason matchup. They got a win against Houston. It was a gutsy win. I don't downgrade the Titans for winning that game against the Texans the way they did. The Texans came out and said, "Hey, we don't have our golf clubs out yet." They gave them everything they could handle. The Titans handled it, and they won the game, and they did it again without their best player.
Hey, Colts, this is what you were supposed to do here in Week 18, right? Like, just go get a win. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be in convincing fashion. Just go out and win and not get blown off the field. I like this Titans team a lot. The defensive line is really good. When they have A.J. Brown on the field, they're just a completely different team. And now you get 2 weeks off. Julio gets a little chance to get healthier. A.J. Brown gets some time to be healthier. Derrick Henry's coming back. Everything is set up for this team to make a run to the Super Bowl. I'll be curious to see if they can do it.
This was an entertaining game, too, Titans-Texans. Yep. It was funny watching Mike Vrabel kind of pace and smirk when he got the spot. And Ryan Tannehill made some nice plays where they had a free rusher and he got the ball out to A.J. Brown, extended drives. Like, that's what you do. It's a gutsy performance, even though you're playing against a weaker team. Division road games, we talk about it all the time, especially a team like the Texans or the Jags, that they want to go out with a good feeling, They've got pride too. So I agree with you completely. They did what the Colts should have done. The Buccaneers, they ended the season on a high note. Tampa Bay's playing Philadelphia, as you pointed out. Tampa Bay has played Philadelphia a few times. I'm going to get to the history of that postseason matchup on Thursday. Takeaway for the Bucs for me, 2 things. One, I still think this team badly needs Leonard Fournette.
Who's coming back?
If they have Super Bowl aspirations, okay. Number 2, Tom Brady for MVP is something I haven't really talked about. If I really think about it, he is as deserving as Aaron Rodgers is.
Sure. I don't have no problem with that. Are you looking for me to say a hot take here? Because I don't have a problem with it.
No. I was really looking for any take. That's why you're on the podcast.
Oh,
just anything.
Sure. Brady basically shooting his age by having the same number of passing touchdowns as his age is pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I saw somebody tweeted out, since you really had nothing but bland analysis there.
Listen, I don't have to have just great analysis on every team. The Bucs are good. There's not a lot to take away.
I know. I'm being so hard on you today. I'm sorry. I'm all over you. I'm just all over you. I saw somebody tweeted out a much smarter tweet than any tweet I've sent lately. Sent out every quarterback in NFL's history's numbers at Tom Brady's age versus Tom Brady's numbers. So every quarterback that ever played at this age, their numbers are, I don't remember what they were, but it was like 15 touchdown passes. And
so
Tom
basically
Brady's got
just
40 something.
George Blanda, right?
George Blanda, Steve DeBerg was a backup for the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah. Vinny Testaverde started a few games with the Panthers. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Real late in his career. Vinny Testaverde could probably throw a beautiful 15-yard outside the numbers before any corner could get there right now. Like literally right now. That dude's arm was phenomenal. Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes. Okay. Before you get into the fact that you think they're going to lose to the Steelers, I just want to say this. Tyreek Hill's limping out there. They're playing a division opponent that's playing for its head coach's job. I don't think that you look at this game or at Patrick Mahomes or whatever and say, oh man, the Chiefs are reeling. They don't look as good. They took the Broncos' best shot for their head coach and they won the game.
They did. They won an ugly divisional game. Hey, Colts, see how you do that? I'm just going to keep bringing up the Colts because
yes, of course.
Melvin Ingram made the play of the game, right? And this is why they brought him in, is to make big plays like he did. And I'm curious to see if he can do it next week against Pittsburgh.
Hey, we talked about Max Crosby, but talk about big time plays over the weekend. that might have been as big a big time play as we saw the whole weekend. Truly, that was phenomenal.
I still don't understand why the Chargers let him go this offseason. You don't think they could have used him rushing the passer against Derek Carr this weekend?
Who was the linebacker that picked it up? The kid rookie that took that ball
is Nick Bolton, who's the leading tackler for the team, who played really well for Kansas City. Yep.
I couldn't remember who scored the touchdown at all. He was so excited after the game, so excited. But I was sitting there brain farting. I was like, "Gosh, who picked up that ball?" Mm-hmm. One last thought on the Kansas City Chiefs. I know we're going to talk about their games on Thursday. But do you think there's any AFC team in the tournament right now whose style of play is a bad matchup for KC?
Tennessee.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It's Tennessee.
That's why Tennessee getting the 1 seed is so important. Now, yes. If Kansas City does happen to somehow pull the upset and get it past Pittsburgh here in round 1, now they'd have to go to Tennessee in round 2. In round 3.
You don't even take yourself seriously when you hesitate like that. I can tell. They're not going to lose to the Steelers. Okay? Listen,
and the Colts aren't going to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars either. Yeah. I understand.
I know. All right. You're all right. You're right. You got me there. You won. You win that one. But I was thinking the same thing you were. I literally, as you were saying that, I was like, that's why that win against Houston was so important for Tennessee.
Massive.
Yeah. So they don't have to go to Arrowhead. Okay. Number 1 team. They've got the top seed. They lost on Sunday, but they gave the Lions a game anyway. I don't know if you got a chance to catch much of that game, Marcus, but high scoring game. It was kind of fun. Mm-hmm. It was old Packers Lions, right? Packers are still the best team in my book. We've talked about them plenty. Is there anything you learned from Sunday or any new thoughts you have with Green Bay's playoff hopes going forward, as in Super Bowl hopes?
No, I still think they should be a heavy favorite in the NFC. They're getting some guys back on defense. It was nice to see David Bakhtiari back in the lineup.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think they're going to – I would be shocked, Elliot, absolutely shocked if they're not in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's a great point on Bakhtiari. That's a huge thing for them. But I do feel a little vindicated here because remember, I put them number 1 way early. I think before everybody else. I was so impressed with the way they won at Arizona. We've talked a lot about Aaron Rodgers not having to play his best with the supporting cast, but he has had one of his better seasons. So, I'm with you. I'd be shocked if they don't make it to the Super Bowl. Be interesting, though. It would be really amazing if San Francisco had to go to Green Bay and play. That is a game I'd love to see as well.
And very realistic if they beat the Cowboys this weekend. So we'll see.
Right. Let's go over the top 32 one more time in case you missed earlier part of the podcast or you fell asleep because we were a little boring in the middle part. We apologize. Giants at 32, Jacksonville at 31, Carolina Panthers at 30. Wondering about the coaching lack of a move at both 32 and 30. Also 31, what are the Jags going to do? Jets at 29, no move expected there. Houston Texans at 28. Hopefully they don't make a move. I'd be shocked if the Lions make a head coaching move. There's no way. No. Atlanta Falcons at 26. Will they trade their quarterback? 25. We have no idea what's going to happen with Seattle. It could all stay the same. Who knows? At 24, now we're getting a little bit out of the bad teams. Washington football team, will they make a change at quarterback? Ron Rivera should be safe, but Taylor Heineke, they'll probably draft somebody. Broncos moved on from Vic Fangio, still a talented defense. Chicago Bears moved on from Matt Nagy. We'll see what happens with those guys as the Minnesota Vikings in their division made a head coaching change and wondering what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins. At 20, the Dolphins have made a head coaching change. It'll still be Tua under center, though. Cleveland Browns, will it be Baker Mayfield under center? Kevin Stefanski should still be there. I hope the Browns get back in the playoffs. I do not want the Browns to go back to what they used to be. Baltimore at 18. Marcus has been out on their culture for about 3 weeks. We'll see if he feels the same way in the offseason. Marcus is dialed in on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who he begged me to have higher in the rankings. I've got him 17. They're my lowest ranked playoff team. At 16, got the New Orleans Saints. I don't want to say it, but a player that should not be named came in and made some really clutch throws for that football team that Marcus can't stand. 15, the Indianapolis Colts. That was just a moment of silence. 14, Philadelphia Eagles. They'll be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chargers at 13 and the Raiders at 12. Played just absolutely phenomenal game. If you didn't get a chance, or if you have Game Pass, go on and rewatch that game. Arizona Cardinals at number 11. How they have dropped. Buffalo at 10. Marcus and I just do not trust these guys. That's why they're on the outskirts of top 10. Cincinnati at 9. Marcus thinks I should have them maybe at 7 above the 49ers and Patriots. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
And maybe even above the Cowboys. Maybe even above the Cowboys as well.
Maybe even above the Cowboys. Okay, so the Cowboys are at 6. Got the Rams at 5. The Titans at 4. The Bucks at 3. This is probably around where Marcus would put Pittsburgh. And then Kansas City at 2. Green Bay at 1. Marcus, any disagreement before the Cowboys with my rankings here? Rams 5, Tennessee 4, Tampa 3, KC 2, Green Bay 1.
No, the only thing is I think you can make a really good argument for Cincinnati being 5, 6, 7. I'm just really bullish on this Bengals team. I like them a lot. I think they're going to win this weekend. And I hope so. I think this Bengals team is a lot of fun. I love Joe Burrow. I would not. Here's what happens. A lot of times these young quarterbacks, they end up going further in the playoffs than we ever expect, right? Patrick Mahomes in year 2 took the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game. Wouldn't shock me if Joe Burrow does the same thing in year 2.
Okay, fair enough. If you guys have any disagreement, by all means, tweet us. But I'm going to say I think these are pretty good power rankings for the end of the year. Of course, I would say that. I'm not going to argue. Not going to argue with my own rankings. But Marcus, as I say always, I'm going to give you the last word. Any topic? What do you got?
I'm really interested to see how some of these games play out this week. I think the Bucks Eagles is going to be a sneaky good game. And I'm really, really excited. We also got a message from Eric. He says, if the Eagles beat the Bucks, it opens the door for 49ers Rams in round 2 of the playoffs. How much fun would that be?
Thank you for figuring that out. Because that is, 49ers Rams, 49ers Packers. Those are 2 playoff games I would just absolutely love to see. I'd rather see that, honestly, than Tampa play Green Bay again, quite frankly.
I would too.
Yeah. Enough already, right? So let me just say one more thing here as well. We appreciate everyone that's joined us for the regular season and the people at Brinks, and also appreciate you sticking with us for what's been over an hour and 10-minute podcast. So much to get to with coaching changes. This is the final time we're going to do, all of these teams until maybe right after the Super Bowl. So really wanted to give it some good discussion. But thank you to all of you guys that have joined us this regular season. We'll still be back. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be here on Thursday picking games unless Marcus changes our schedule again, which he's prone to do because he's high maintenance and he doesn't shovel his driveway anymore. He outsources that. Okay, with that, Marcus, I feel like I had to give you a spear in the back right before we leave.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's appropriate. He is the host of the most successful Cowboys podcast there is. He also covers the Raiders for Raiders Wire. Follow him. He's a great follow. That's what I did a few years ago. And I'm thankful for it. At Marcus_Mosher. I'm at Harrison NFL or Elliot. We'll see y'all. Thanks, everybody.